Donald Trump has told protesters in Iran help is on the way, warning Tehran will face consequences for its continuing violent crackdown. As we speak, the US president is receiving an intelligence briefing on the latest death toll before deciding what, or if any, action will be taken. Michael Clark can run you through Donald Trump's options, but first, this is what the US leader had to say less than an hour ago.
But we'll straighten that out. But Iran is on my mind when I see the kind of death that is happening over there, we think. So we're going to get some accurate numbers. I'll have it in about 20 minutes. We'll get some accurate numbers as to what's happening with regard to the killing. The killing looks like it's significant, but we don't know yet for certain. I'll know within 20 minutes. So,
as the Iranian crisis goes on, the White House is itching to take some sort of action, but we don't really know what sort of action they may be considering. There are a number of options, of course. The non-kinetic options, the peaceful options, include more sanctions, using tariffs to try to isolate the government in Tehran, which is already looks as if it's taking place, and the idea of cyber attacks, perhaps, on the Guard, the Revolutionary Guard, who are actually conducting the oppression of the protesters out in the streets of many, many cities. Beyond that, of course, there are the military options. And if we think about military strikes, there are three types of target that would make a certain amount of sense to the United States. One type of target might be the nuclear facilities of Iran. There are plenty of them. There are many of them that the United States would still like to attack, and so would the Israelis. The problem with that is that it wouldn't actually help the protesters very much, and it would be an attack on some background elements of Iran, which might be quite counterproductive. A second set of targets might be the Revolutionary Guard headquarters and the way in which they operate in the major cities. But the problem is they do operate in the major cities like Shiraz and Isfahan and Mashhad and Tehran. And so attacking their facilities almost certainly would cause civilian casualties, and that too might be counterproductive. A third sort of target might be the oil and gas infrastructure of Iran, and this would have an immediate effect, particularly in areas like Hag Island and Bandar Abbas. The South Pars gas field is the biggest single gas field in the world. It's shared with Qatar. Hitting the gas field would be a very foolish thing to do, but hitting the transmission of Iranian gas from the field to the inland areas, to places like Bashir, that might have a very immediate economic effect on the government in Tehran. Ultimately, of course, it would affect the people of Tehran. It would affect the economy pretty directly, but it would affect the government in Tehran even more directly. And that might be a tempting set of targets for the United States. Ultimately, of course, all of this is about whether the outbreak of disorder, and that's our current map of how big the disorder is across Iran, whether that outbreak of disorder is better helped by military action or by non-military action. We're going to find out the answer that the White House comes up with quite soon.
Let's get more with political scientist and senior fellow at the UCLA Burkle Center for International Relations, Benjamin Rad. He joins us live from Los Angeles now. Benjamin, thanks for your time on Sky News today. Donald Trump telling reporters on his touchdown in Florida earlier that he was about to receive a new intelligence briefing on exactly how many Iranians are being killed in demonstrations there. How much, whatever he hears in that briefing, will inform his decision-making?
I'm pretty convinced the president has already made up his mind, or at least the National Security Cabinet has decided whether or not to pursue any action to weaken the Iranian government's ability to harm protesters. I think that decision was probably made a day or so ago. And now the question is what the next steps will be, whether it'll be a kinetic strike of some sort, a cyber attack, some sort of an economic pressure applied. Additionally, let's say sanctions, or finding out a way to curtail Iran's export of oil, which is still happening at a pretty rapid pace despite all the international sanctions that are in place already.
What do you think his preferred option might be, and what does he have to weigh up when deciding what action to take?
Well, whatever action has to minimize Iran's ability not just to retaliate, but the fact that they will retaliate. So the United States needs to move its carrier strike force into the Gulf as a deterrent to stop any Iranian defenses or counteractions against U.S. personnel, U.S. Equipment, U.S. bases, U.S. allies in the region. So there's that factor to consider. I don't think that the Iranians will measure necessarily their response either way. They're going to see any U.S. involvement, whether it's military or otherwise, to be an act of aggression, and will respond however they're going to. What the president has to weigh is how effective will whatever option he chooses be. Will it succeed in providing immediate support and relief to the protesters? Will it help reduce the killing? Will it weaken Iran's security apparatus that is causing most of the brutality that we see? So those are the things we'll be looking for.
The White House has sounded very proud of what it achieved in Venezuela. Has that emboldened Donald Trump?
It's emboldened him in the sense that he's been able to essentially remove a head of state with impunity. When we saw some protestation from around the world, but nothing serious, nothing done at the UN, not a whole lot of pushback here domestically in the United States from members of the opposition party in Congress. I mean, there's definitely been some voices raised about whether or not this is consistent with international law. But at the end of the day, the president has expanded his executive authority to conduct foreign policy and operations of this sort without any hindrance from the other branches of government. So definitely that is emboldening.
And ultimately, how easy is it to tell if this current uprising in Iran is any different to previous ones we've seen that have been very severely dealt with?
One of the things we want to look for, and this echoes what we saw back in 1979 with the initial Islamic Revolution, is defections within the security forces. Anybody breaking away, we start to see members of those security forces, whether it's the Basij, the IRGC, other elements. Do they have second thoughts about what they're doing and about what they're seeing? Are they going to be concerned about their own security and what happens afterwards, whether the regime stays or doesn't? Do they start to sympathize with the protesters? Do they get disillusioned with what they're being asked to do? Does the killing and the brutality start to impact them psychologically? If we start to see people breaking away from their roles and also the leadership structure within the security forces as well, then we can say, okay, the government not only has lost the legitimacy and credibility, but now is losing the support from within its own ranks to carry out these acts.
OK, really interesting stuff. Benjamin Rad, appreciate your time here on Sky News this morning. That's Benjamin Rad, political scientist and senior fellow at the UCLA. Thanks, Benjamin.